Okay, so I'm ready to take this object and scale it, hopefully up to the right size. So we can see way off in the distance are my buildings, but obviously there's a bit of a mismatch here. In scale, right now if I pick all these objects and I hit R for scale, if I press V and D for enter edit mode or moving the pivot, we can see that every object has its own pivot. And so if I scaled them all, they would all scale around their own pivots, and I would get quite a mess. What I'll do is first I'm going to press R and hold and left click anywhere to get the marking menu for scale, and I'll switch to the world axis. And then I'm going to press V and D, Victor and David, and I'm going to place the pivot of these objects on one of the vertices over here on the sides. Now if I scale this, everything scales together, and making sure I use the uniform scale. What I'll try is first I'll move it over, at least somewhere towards my buildings. Let's actually pull it out outside of the building. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, I can see it's in the wrong orientation. It needs to wrap around kind of the L of the building here. And I'll press and hold E for the marking menu for rotation and choose world. And then I'll also choose discrete rotate. That's pressing and holding E again, so that the rotation on this snaps every 90 degrees. And if that gives you a funny angle, you can always come in here up in the top on the status line in the relative transform and put a 90 in. Okay. So it works. It looks like a couple of the shape nodes maybe went off a little bit, but I think I can deal with that. The other option is if things really start to fly apart, even though you've placed the pivot in theory where you want it to be, parent it to something. So I'm going to make a polycube here, and I'm going to hold V for snap and snap a polycube right over my whole mesh. Doesn't matter if I can't see it at the moment. And then I'll pick all of the objects of my sculpture and make sure that I select the polycube last and press P for parent. And it sort of flashes, and that object is now the parent for that. So anywhere I take my polycube and I rotate, everything else goes with it. It inherits the transform of its parent. And so now I can try that 90-degree rotation to get this in the right direction. Okay, so there we are in a top view. So I don't mind scaling just from the polycube's original center. I can grab it and scale it and try to approximate it, which could be interesting. I can look at a length of a side, and I would use either the measure tools or snapping an object to it, and that's the approach I'm going to use here to figure out, I know exactly the length from the straight end of the decking out to the corner here, how big something should be, and I can get a known measurement I can figure out a scale to, and that's what I'll do.